Here's a figure from your book that defines these terms that we just defined in the previous video. So we talked about these combinations, and they can boil down to either these three. We either have, when we compare pairs of alleles for any given gene in any organism, we have one of these three possible relationships. We can have this dominant recessive relationship where the phenotype looks just like one of the homozygous parents, or we can have incomplete dominance, or we can have this codominance, and there's this ABO blood type. That book talks about that examples as well. Both phenotypes express, so, sort of a red and white flower phenotype, red, white, and pink, or polka dot. Red and white polka dot, essentially. And so there it is in the book. Unfortunately, the book in this important figure in chapter 10 includes these down here too, but that is an important story in genetics because pairs of alleles, which is what we spend a lot of time comparing, are either one of these or the other, like that. Multiple alleles, we already talked about that, where headaches could be a phenotype. A phenotype can be, this is multiple alleles that the whole population, we have a variety of different alleles, like hair color or blood type. Like that. So there'd be a variety of different alleles. Okay, got that concept. And then pleiotropy, one gene can affect multiple phenotypic characters. The hemoglobin gene can have an effect on headaches or kidney function. You're like, ooh, those seem really different. But not when you understand the underlying biochemical function of the gene. So it's too bad the book has those together, because we want to talk about them like that. That's a very important set of images to understand. And here's an example of that. Let me just show you this. That geneticists often talk about stories in the context of sort of like word problems, story problems like that. And so let's just, and the story problem will be an example of either dominant recessive, incomplete dominance, or codominance. And so let's just talk through this example. And what we do is, it's a little bit like sort of a murder mystery, where we're looking at this story of Mendelian or transmission genetics breeding experiment, story problem, and we have this little mystery. And the key thing is just that we have to decide if it's an example of this or this, and then there will be some important rules. And here's an important rule. In a heterozygote, there can be a hidden trait, right? Because this could be recessive and it could be hidden. And that's this thing where you see things, we talk about things skipping generation. We see it skip a generation because it's recessive, it's hidden, like, oh, she has red hair like grandma, because the red hair phenotype was recessive. Incomplete dominance, there is nothing hidden. So, when we see a red and white flower combined to make pink codominance, there's nothing hidden. The pink shows that it's heterozygote. So in a dominant recessive, we can't tell the difference between dominant heterozygote and more questions. If it's dominant recessive, we can't see a difference. There is no phenotype difference. Whereas with incomplete dominance, there is a difference in the phenotype. So you'll see that's just a key thing in these word problems. These story problems become very sort of straightforward when you just carefully define what these terms are and you don't make any assumptions. You can't make any assumptions. So check this out. So it says, assume that wool color is due to a single gene and white is recessive. So it tells you right there, there's a hint right there. It could be hidden, And imagine that in, traditional breeding experiments, you didn't have that information, and you had to sort of work it out over many generations, this relationship. But we're given that here. So it says, what are the chances that a lamb born from two white sheep parents will be black? Well, white is recessive to black. So if that's the case, and you have a white sheep parent, a white sheep to be white must have allele that is both alleles must be from the white gene. If they carried the black allele, the sheep would be black because that's dominant. So when its gene is recessive, and we say allele is recessive, we say that the organism shows that phenotype. The organism must have both of those alleles. And so we've got two white sheep parents. They must have only white sheep alleles. And when they make lambs, they can only pass on that trait, so all lambs are white. They can't have a black lamb because black lambs are dominant. Black alleles are dominant, and one of the parents would have to be black. So what are the chances of a lamb born from two white parents will be black? The answer is 0. You can't have it. Now, we have to be careful because sometimes you need more information. You have to be careful not to make assumptions because, look, I think this next question will have that. What are the chances that a lamb born from two black sheep parents will be white? And the answer to that is we don't know. Because we don't know if a black sheep is black dominant or black red, black white, I guess, in this example, black white heterozygote. We can't tell. These look the same in a dominant recessive relationship. These look the same. So you don't know if you're crossing what type of parents you're crossing. It's possible you would cross this, and that there's a certain chance that these two alleles would be sent on, and you would have a white baby. But you just don't know. You might say, wouldn't it be like a 25% of the time? No, we don't know, because you might have this, and then they would never have a white lamb, right? So you need more information. And so that's an example where in some cases you can confidently say, yep, this is a situation. In other cases you say, no, we need that. So it says, what required for two black sheep to give birth to a cute little white lamb on Easter morning? It's just following up on that. And the answer is both parents would need to be heterozygotes. They need to be what are called, the term is, they would need to be carriers of the white trait, the white fleece trait. With that, and these are just all differences that are wrong because they include some of this. And you couldn't have one parent be homozygous black because they could only send on that black allele, and that lamb will be black because black is dominant. Like that, okay? So here's another set of questions that pull this difference, and that is, now what about incomplete dominance, right? So we have the big characteristics of either dominant recessive or incomplete dominance, and then there's this codominance, and that's kind of a different polka dot story. But look at how the questions and answers shift when we have incomplete dominance, because remember, in incomplete dominance, the key thing is nothing is hidden. In other words, there's no such thing as a carrier. There's no carrier because you'd be able to see it. You know, red and white would be pink. It's not a carrier. So it says, following question, imagine a hamster for college due to a single gene that white fur allele and brown fur allele show incomplete dominance. And so white and brown, when bred, you know, you can imagine they would be tan because it's incomplete dominance, some shade of tan that you'd see as the heterozygote being the heterozygote looking different than the homozygous. So we can just draw that up there. We got homozygous brown, heterozygous tan, and then homozygous white. Boom. What color babies could two tan-furred babies have? So you can just map that out, and they could give rise, you know, they send on one allele. So you got, well, let's just draw it out. You got two tan-furred parents, and they're going to send on one allele, and you could send on any combination. There could be a baby that would be white. There could be a baby that would be different, you know, patterns of tan, either this combination or this combination of tan. and then there'd be a baby to be brown. So what kind of babies? They could make any of the 3 colors. Then look at this. Nothing's hidden. What are the chances that 2 brown-furred parents will have a white-furred baby? Is there a carrier? Is there a chance that these brown-furred parents are carrying the white gene? The answer is no. In the previous question, the recessive allele can be carried and hidden. What are the chances that 2 brown-furred parents will have a white-furred parent? And we can confidently say it's 0%. The previous question, or the previous set of questions about the sheep, we had to say more information is needed, but nothing is hidden here. What are the chances that 2 tan-furred parents will have a white-furred baby? And the answer is, we can actually work out some math here, whether 2 tan-furred parents will have a white-furred baby. And I've drawn it out here. And the answer is, by just random combination of these, there's a 1 in 4 chance or a 25% chance. And that reveals a principle in genetics of inheritance, this transmission genetics, that we want to talk about next. And that looks like this. Oh, this is just a key concept written out. So the book will have examples. Here's a dominant recessive example. Here's an incomplete dominant. And I'm just repeating this. When a pair of alleles are dominant recessive, the genotype can be hidden in some cases and not seen in the phenotype. On the other hand, a pair of alleles have incomplete dominance. The genotype cannot be hidden like that. Okay, so there's no such thing as a carrier. Okay, so here's this quickly just to show this, and we'll talk about this more in the next experiment, and that is next video, and that is what combinations of alleles can we get can give rise to this next generation. And so this is a lab-based experiment and in genetics where we start with the original parental generation, and they're referred to as true breeding plants, which just means they have been inbred for generations, and so that we understand that they would be homozygous. So the book starts out talking about that. The understanding is there would not be any hidden traits in this population of purple flowers or white flowers. They've been bred a long time. So we're going to cross those homozygous, and this will be a heterozygous offspring, F1 generation. So first generation, and then we can go further across as F2 and so forth. So that's just a little nomenclature. And then we'll just stop with this. This is what I was showing in that story problem, that we can say, well, these are the alleles. Let's do it this way. These are the alleles that the parents produce, and then they can send on one or the other. And in this case, they're homozygous, true breeding. So let's just send this on, and then you can have these combinations. And this is by chance, and the basis of this, it reveals 2 principles that we'll talk about in the next video. Okay, so that's that.